Looking back now, I can pinpoint the exact moment my career trajectory shifted. It was a Tuesday morning in March when Marcus called me into his office to deliver what he clearly thought was a career-defining verdict. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as he leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, and informed me that despite my recent successes, I simply wasn't executive material. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 months earlier, I had just wrapped up my third consecutive successful product launch in 18 months. Each launch had exceeded projections. Each had come in under budget. Each had established new benchmarks for our division. But apparently, none of that mattered when it came to the fundamental question of leadership potential. Marcus had been my team lead for 2 years at that point. He was the kind of manager who confused activity with productivity, who believed that executive presence meant speaking loudly in meetings and taking credit for work done by others. He had a particular talent for being visible when things went well and mysteriously absent when problems arose. I had watched him operate long enough to understand his patterns, his insecurities, and most importantly, his blind spots. What Marcus didn't know as he delivered his assessment that Tuesday morning was that I had been having quiet conversations with senior leadership for the past 6 months. Not the kind of conversations that undermine a direct supervisor, but the kind that naturally arise when your work consistently speaks for itself, when you solve problems before they become crises, when you deliver results that make the entire division look good. The first of my 3 successful launches had been the mobile app integration for our flagship product. Marcus had initially resisted the project, arguing that mobile optimization was a distraction from core business functions. I had spent weeks building a case, presenting data, and finally convincing him to let me proceed with a small pilot program. When that pilot generated a 40% increase in user engagement within the first month, Marcus suddenly became very interested in mobile strategy. He began presenting my progress reports to senior leadership as evidence of his forward-thinking approach to technology adoption. I didn't mind. I understood that in corporate environments, credit often flows upward. What mattered to me was that the project succeeded and our users benefited from a significantly improved experience. The second launch had been more complex. We were rolling out a new customer service portal that required coordination between 4 different departments. Marcus had wanted to assign the project to someone with more seniority, but the other senior developers were already overcommitted to existing initiatives. I volunteered to take it on, primarily because I had identified several potential integration issues that others had overlooked. The project timeline was aggressive. We had 12 weeks to design, develop, test, and deploy a system that would handle customer interactions for our entire North American operation. Most of the team estimated we needed at least 16 weeks. I knew we could do it in 10 if we approached the architecture differently. Rather than building a monolithic system, I proposed a modular approach that would allow different departments to implement their components independently while maintaining seamless integration. This required more upfront planning, but significantly reduced the risk of delays caused by interdepartmental dependencies. Marcus was skeptical. He preferred traditional waterfall approaches where each phase completed before the next began. The modular approach required more trust in team members and more sophisticated project coordination. It also meant that if something went wrong, it would be harder to assign blame to a specific person or department. I spent 2 weeks creating detailed technical specifications and implementation timelines. I identified potential risks and developed contingency plans. I created communication protocols that would keep all stakeholders informed without overwhelming them with unnecessary detail. Most importantly, I made sure that Marcus would receive regular updates that made him look informed and in control when reporting to his superiors. The customer service portal launched 9 weeks after we began development. It processed over 10,000 customer interactions in its first week without a single critical failure. Customer satisfaction scores increased by 28% in the first month. The system handled peak loads that were 30% higher than our most optimistic projections. Marcus presented the success metrics to the executive team as evidence of his department's exceptional project management capabilities. He received a commendation for bringing the project in ahead of schedule and under budget. I received a standard performance bonus and a note in my personnel file acknowledging my technical contributions. The third launch had been the most challenging and ultimately the most revealing. We were developing a data analytics platform that would give our sales team real-time insights into customer behavior patterns. The project had been initiated by the Chief Revenue Officer after our main competitor launched a similar system that was giving them a significant advantage in customer retention. The timeline was impossibly tight. We had 8 weeks to deliver something that typically took 4 to 6 months. The executive team was breathing down Marcus's neck, and Marcus was transferring that pressure directly to the development team. He held daily status meetings that accomplished nothing except making everyone feel more stressed. He demanded detailed progress reports that took hours to prepare and minutes to dismiss. He created an atmosphere of controlled panic that made productive work nearly impossible. I realized that we needed a different approach. Instead of trying to build a comprehensive analytics platform from scratch, I proposed creating a minimum viable product that focused on the 3 most critical metrics our sales team needed. We could deliver something useful quickly and then iterate based on actual user feedback rather than theoretical requirements. Marcus rejected this approach initially. He wanted to deliver something that would impress the executive team with its comprehensiveness and sophistication. He envisioned detailed dashboards with dozens of metrics, complex visualizations, and predictive modeling capabilities. He wanted to build something that looked like the expensive enterprise software our competitors were selling. I knew this approach would fail. We didn't have the time, the resources, or frankly the user research to build something that complex. But I also knew that arguing with Marcus in meetings would only entrench his position and waste valuable development time. Instead, I began building the minimum viable product in parallel with the official project. I worked evenings and weekends, not because I was trying to undermine Marcus, but because I could see the disaster approaching and I wanted to have an alternative ready. I focused on clean, simple interfaces that presented the most critical information clearly. I used existing data sources wherever possible, rather than trying to create new data collection systems. By week 6, it became clear that Marcus's comprehensive approach was failing. The technical complexity was overwhelming our small team. The user interface was confusing even to the developers who built it. The data integration was unreliable. We were facing the very real possibility of delivering nothing useful by the deadline. That's when I quietly demonstrated my alternative approach to Marcus. I showed him a working prototype that successfully answered the sales team's 3 most urgent questions: which customers were most likely to churn, which prospects were most likely to convert, and which products were performing above or below expectations. The prototype wasn't sophisticated, but it was functional, reliable, and genuinely useful. Marcus could see immediately that it would meet the executive team's fundamental requirements while avoiding the technical risks that were threatening to derail the official project. He made the decision to pivot to my approach, but he presented it as his own strategic insight. He explained to the team that he had realized we needed to focus on core functionality rather than comprehensive features. He repositioned the change as evidence of his adaptive leadership style rather than an acknowledgement that his original plan was failing. The analytics platform launched on schedule. It immediately provided valuable insights that helped the sales team identify at-risk customers and prioritize their outreach efforts. Customer retention improved by 15% in the first quarter after launch. The platform became a critical tool for our sales operations and eventually formed the foundation for more sophisticated analytics capabilities. Marcus received recognition for his strategic thinking and ability to deliver under pressure. He was praised for his pragmatic approach to product development and his focus on user needs over technical sophistication. He began speaking at industry conferences about agile development methodologies and customer-centric design principles. I continued to receive standard performance evaluations that acknowledged my technical contributions while noting that I needed to develop stronger leadership and communication skills. The feedback suggested that I was a solid individual contributor but lacked the strategic thinking necessary for management roles. This pattern had become familiar to me. I would identify problems, develop solutions, and implement them successfully. Marcus would present the results as evidence of his leadership capabilities. I would receive credit for technical execution, while he received credit for strategic vision. The system worked well for Marcus and adequately for me, but it was beginning to feel unsustainable. The conversation in his office that Tuesday morning crystallized what I had been sensing for months. Marcus didn't see me as a future leader because acknowledging my leadership potential would require acknowledging that I had been providing much of the actual leadership for our team's most successful projects. He explained that executive presence required certain qualities that couldn't be taught or developed: confidence in high-pressure situations, the ability to see big-picture strategy rather than getting lost in technical details, comfort with ambiguity and uncertainty, the willingness to make difficult decisions without complete information. As he spoke, I mentally reviewed the past 18 months. I thought about the mobile app integration project, where I had navigated political resistance and technical uncertainty to deliver a solution that transformed user engagement. I thought about the customer service portal, where I had designed a complex system architecture under aggressive timeline pressure. I thought about the analytics platform, where I had quietly developed a backup plan that saved the project when the official approach failed. Marcus continued his assessment, explaining that successful executives needed to delegate effectively rather than trying to solve every problem personally. They needed to focus on managing people and processes rather than writing code or designing systems. They needed to communicate with stakeholders at all levels of the organization, not just technical team members. I listened carefully, not because his critique was particularly insightful, but because it revealed how he understood leadership and what he valued in potential executives. His perspective was consistent with traditional corporate hierarchies, where technical expertise was viewed as a limitation rather than an asset, where hands-on problem-solving was seen as an inability to delegate rather than a commitment to quality results. The conversation concluded with Marcus offering some career advice. He suggested that I focus on developing my interpersonal skills and learning to think more strategically about business problems. He recommended that I observe how senior leaders operated and try to emulate their communication styles. He emphasized that technical excellence was valuable but insufficient for executive roles. I thanked Marcus for his feedback and assured him that I would consider his suggestions carefully. I didn't argue with his assessment or defend my track record. I had learned that arguing with managers about their perceptions rarely changed those perceptions and often made working relationships more difficult. But as I walked back to my desk, I was already thinking about my next steps. I had been having those quiet conversations with senior leadership for months, not because I was plotting against Marcus, but because my work naturally brought me into contact with executives who were interested in the technical details of our most important projects. The Chief Technology Officer had been particularly engaged with the analytics platform project. She understood the technical challenges we had faced and the innovative approaches we had used to overcome them. She had asked detailed questions about my design decisions and implementation strategies. She had seemed genuinely impressed with the results we had achieved under significant time and resource constraints. The Chief Revenue Officer had taken notice of the customer service portal's impact on customer satisfaction metrics. He had asked me to present the project results to his leadership team, focusing on how technology improvements could drive business outcomes. He had followed up with questions about other potential applications for similar approaches. The Chief Executive Officer had mentioned the mobile app integration during a company-wide meeting, highlighting it as an example of innovative thinking that gave us a competitive advantage. She had specifically noted the rapid user adoption and engagement improvements, metrics that directly impacted our quarterly revenue targets. These weren't casual interactions. They were the kind of conversations that happen when senior leaders recognize value and want to understand its source. They were the kind of relationships that develop naturally when your work consistently makes other people successful. Over the following weeks, I continued to focus on delivering excellent results while quietly expanding my visibility within the organization. I volunteered for cross-functional projects that brought me into contact with leaders from other divisions. I wrote technical blog posts for our company website that demonstrated thought leadership in areas relevant to our business strategy. I participated in industry conferences where I could represent our company's technical capabilities to external audiences. Marcus seemed pleased with what he interpreted as my renewed focus on professional development. He encouraged my participation in these activities, viewing them as evidence that I was taking his career advice seriously. He didn't realize that I was systematically building relationships and demonstrating capabilities that would soon make his assessment of my leadership potential irrelevant. The opportunity came sooner than I had expected. the company announced a major reorganization designed to improve coordination between our product development and customer success teams. The new structure would include a Director of Product Technology position responsible for ensuring that our technical initiatives aligned with customer needs and business objectives. The role required someone with deep technical expertise who could also communicate effectively with non-technical stakeholders. It required someone who understood both the capabilities and limitations of our current systems and could envision how they might evolve to meet future requirements. It required someone who had demonstrated the ability to deliver complex projects under pressure while maintaining focus on business outcomes. I knew immediately that I was qualified for this position. My track record of successful product launches had given me experience with every aspect of the role. My relationships with senior leadership had demonstrated my ability to communicate technical concepts to business stakeholders. My understanding of our technical architecture and business strategy positioned me to bridge the gap between product development and customer success effectively. I also knew that Marcus would likely apply for the position himself. As a current team lead with management experience, he would be considered a natural candidate for promotion to a director-level role. His presentation skills and comfort with high-level strategic discussions would serve him well in the interview process. I decided to apply anyway. Not because I was certain I would be selected, but because I believed my qualifications were strong enough to warrant serious consideration. I spent several days preparing my application materials, focusing on specific examples of how my technical work had driven business results. I didn't mention my application to Marcus. I didn't want to create any awkwardness in our working relationship while the selection process was ongoing. I also didn't want him to feel that I was challenging his assessment of my leadership potential or competing with him inappropriately. The interview process was thorough. I met with the Chief Technology Officer, the Chief Revenue Officer, and the Chief Executive Officer in separate sessions. Each interview focused on different aspects of the role and different scenarios I might encounter as Director of Product Technology. The Chief Technology Officer was interested in my technical vision for our product portfolio. She asked how I would prioritize competing technical initiatives and how I would ensure that our architecture could scale to meet future business requirements. We discussed the technical debt that had accumulated in some of our older systems and strategies for modernizing them without disrupting current operations. The Chief Revenue Officer focused on customer impact and business outcomes. He presented scenarios where technical limitations were constraining business opportunities and asked how I would approach those challenges. We discussed methods for quantifying the business value of technical improvements and strategies for communicating technical roadmaps to non-technical stakeholders. The Chief Executive Officer was interested in my perspective on the relationship between technology and business strategy. She asked how I would ensure that our technical capabilities aligned with our competitive positioning and market opportunities. We discussed the role of technology in enabling new business models and creating sustainable competitive advantages. Each conversation felt natural and engaging. I was able to draw on specific examples from my recent project experience to illustrate my responses. I could reference actual results and measurable outcomes rather than speaking in hypothetical terms. I felt confident that I had demonstrated both technical expertise and business acumen throughout the interview process. Marcus also went through the interview process, though I wasn't privy to the details of his conversations with senior leadership. He seemed confident about his prospects, occasionally mentioning how well his interviews had gone and how excited he was about the opportunity to take on broader responsibilities. 2 weeks after the interviews concluded, the Chief Executive Officer announced the new organizational structure and leadership appointments during a company-wide meeting. She explained the rationale for the changes and introduced the new directors who would be leading each functional area. When she announced that I would be serving as Director of Product Technology, I felt a moment of genuine surprise despite my confidence in my qualifications. The promotion represented a significant leap in both responsibility and organizational level. I would be reporting directly to the Chief Technology Officer and serving on the senior leadership team that made strategic decisions for the entire company. Marcus's reaction was immediate and visible. His face went through a series of expressions that I had never seen before. Initial confusion, as if he had misheard the announcement. Then shock, as the reality of what had happened began to sink in. Then something that looked like anger, though he controlled it quickly. Finally, a forced smile that fooled no one who was paying attention. After the meeting, several colleagues came over to congratulate me on the promotion. They seemed genuinely pleased that my contributions had been recognized and excited about what I might accomplish in the new role. The enthusiasm was gratifying, but I was primarily focused on the conversations I would need to have with my current team members about the transition. Marcus approached me as the crowd was dispersing. He offered his congratulations with what appeared to be genuine professionalism, though I could see the effort it required. He mentioned that he looked forward to working with me in my new capacity, and that he was confident I would do well in the role. I thanked him for his support and acknowledged that I had learned a great deal from working on his team. I meant it sincerely. Working for Marcus had taught me valuable lessons about organizational dynamics, stakeholder management, and the importance of building relationships across different levels of the company hierarchy. Over the following days, the full implications of the promotion became clear. Marcus would now be reporting to me indirectly, as his team would be part of the product technology organization I was leading. Our working relationship would need to be restructured significantly, and we would both need to adjust to a new dynamic. The transition period was professionally managed but emotionally complex. Marcus maintained appropriate professional behavior, but I could sense his ongoing discomfort with the situation. He had clearly expected to be promoted himself and was struggling to adjust to the reality that someone he had managed was now in a senior position. I tried to handle the situation with sensitivity and respect for his experience and contributions. I made sure to acknowledge his expertise in team meetings and to seek his input on decisions that affected his area of responsibility. I wanted to demonstrate that my promotion didn't diminish the value of his work or his role in our organization, but I also needed to establish my authority and credibility in the new position. I couldn't allow concerns about Marcus's feelings to prevent me from making necessary decisions or implementing important changes. I had been promoted because senior leadership believed I could drive better results, and I had a responsibility to justify that confidence. One of my first major decisions involved restructuring how we approached product development projects. Based on my experience with the 3 successful launches, I wanted to implement more agile methodologies that would allow us to deliver value more quickly and respond more effectively to changing requirements. This meant moving away from the traditional waterfall approaches that Marcus preferred toward more iterative development cycles with frequent stakeholder feedback and course corrections. It meant empowering individual team members to make more decisions independently rather than routing everything through hierarchical approval processes. Marcus was resistant to these changes, arguing that they introduced unnecessary complexity and reduced management oversight. He was concerned that without detailed upfront planning and formal approval processes, projects would become chaotic and unpredictable. He worried that distributed decision-making would make it harder to ensure quality and consistency across different initiatives. I understood his concerns, but I also knew that the traditional approaches he favored had been limiting our ability to respond quickly to market opportunities and customer needs. The success of my previous projects had demonstrated that more flexible methodologies could deliver better results when implemented thoughtfully. I spent time explaining the rationale for the changes and addressing Marcus's specific concerns. I created training programs to help team members develop the skills they would need to succeed in a more autonomous environment. I established clear metrics for measuring project success and regular review processes to ensure accountability. The implementation took several months, but the results were encouraging. Project delivery times decreased by an average of 30% while maintaining quality standards. Customer satisfaction with new features improved as we were able to incorporate their feedback more quickly. Team members reported higher job satisfaction as they gained more control over their work and more direct contact with the business outcomes they were creating. Marcus gradually adapted to the new approaches, though he remained more comfortable with traditional project management methods. He focused his efforts on areas where structured oversight added genuine value, while allowing more flexibility in areas where team members had demonstrated competence and reliability. The success of the organizational changes strengthened my credibility with senior leadership and validated their decision to promote me. The Chief Executive Officer began including me in strategic planning discussions that had previously been limited to the most senior executives. The Chief Technology Officer asked me to represent the company at industry conferences and customer meetings where technical expertise was important. 6 months after my promotion, I was invited to present our product development improvements to the board of directors as part of their quarterly review. I explained how the new methodologies had accelerated our delivery capabilities and improved our responsiveness to market changes. I shared specific metrics that demonstrated the business impact of our technical improvements. The board members were impressed with the results and asked detailed questions about how we might apply similar approaches to other areas of the business. They were particularly interested in our ability to deliver complex projects more quickly without sacrificing quality or reliability. After the presentation, the chairman of the board approached me privately to express his appreciation for the work I was doing. He mentioned that the company's technical capabilities had become a significant competitive advantage and that my leadership was a key factor in that success. Looking back now, I can see that Marcus's assessment of my leadership potential was both wrong and understandable. He was wrong because he confused leadership style with leadership effectiveness. He valued traditional executive behaviors like delegating extensively and maintaining distance from technical details, but he failed to recognize that effective leadership often requires hands-on expertise and direct problem-solving. His perspective was understandable because it reflected conventional wisdom about corporate hierarchies and management roles. In many organizations, technical expertise is viewed as a limitation that prevents people from developing broader strategic thinking. Individual contribution is seen as incompatible with management responsibility. But our industry was changing in ways that made traditional management approaches less effective. Technical complexity was increasing faster than most executives could understand it. Customer expectations were evolving more quickly than traditional planning cycles could accommodate. Competitive advantages were increasingly dependent on technical capabilities rather than just business strategy. In this environment, leaders needed to combine strategic thinking with technical depth. They needed to understand both business requirements and implementation challenges. They needed to be able to communicate effectively with both executive stakeholders and technical team members. My success in the director role demonstrated that technical expertise could be a leadership asset rather than a limitation. My ability to understand complex technical challenges helped me make better strategic decisions. My hands-on experience with our systems helped me identify opportunities and risks that other executives might miss. Marcus eventually found his place in the new organizational structure. He remained a valuable team member who contributed significantly to our success, though he never fully embraced the more flexible methodologies we implemented. He continued to prefer structured approaches and formal processes, which proved valuable for certain types of projects that required careful coordination and detailed planning. Our working relationship evolved into something more collaborative and mutually respectful. He recognized that my promotion had been based on legitimate qualifications and demonstrated results. I acknowledged that his experience and perspective added value to our team's decision-making processes. The experience taught me important lessons about organizational dynamics and professional development. I learned that technical expertise and leadership capability were not mutually exclusive, despite conventional wisdom suggesting otherwise. I learned that demonstrating value through consistent results was more effective than arguing about perceptions or fighting for recognition. Most importantly, I learned that quiet confidence and steady performance could be more powerful than aggressive self-promotion or political maneuvering. By focusing on delivering excellent results rather than managing impressions, I had built the kind of credibility that made my qualifications undeniable when the right opportunity arose. The promotion to Director of Product Technology was just the beginning of a career trajectory that has continued to exceed my original expectations. The skills and relationships I developed in that role have created opportunities for even greater responsibility and impact. The technical expertise that Marcus viewed as a limitation has proven to be one of my greatest professional assets. Today, when I work with aspiring technical leaders, I encourage them to embrace their expertise rather than trying to minimize it in pursuit of traditional executive roles. The most effective leaders in our industry are those who can bridge the gap between technical capabilities and business requirements, who can translate complex technical concepts into business value, and who can inspire technical teams to deliver outstanding results. Marcus taught me valuable lessons, though not the ones he intended. His assessment of my leadership potential was wrong, but it motivated me to prove that technical expertise and strategic thinking could coexist in the same person. His emphasis on traditional executive behaviors helped me understand what I needed to demonstrate to be taken seriously in senior leadership roles. The morning he told me I wasn't executive material feels like a turning point when I look back on it now. Not because his assessment changed anything about my capabilities or my approach to work, but because it clarified what I needed to accomplish to advance my career in the organization. His reaction to my promotion was indeed priceless, though not for the reasons you might expect. It wasn't satisfying because it represented his disappointment or embarrassment. It was valuable because it demonstrated how much our understanding of leadership was changing and how traditional assessments of leadership potential were becoming obsolete. The technology industry rewards results over rhetoric, innovation over convention, and competence over charisma. In this environment, the most effective leaders are often those who combine deep expertise with strategic thinking, who solve problems rather than just identifying them, and who build credibility through consistent performance rather than impressive presentations. Marcus's surprise at my promotion reflected an outdated understanding of what executives should look like and how they should behave. My success in the role demonstrated that effective leadership could take many different forms, particularly in organizations where technical complexity was a core business challenge. The experience reinforced my belief that the best career strategy is to focus on delivering exceptional results while building genuine relationships with colleagues at all levels of the organization. Recognition and advancement follow naturally when your contributions are consistently valuable and your character is consistently trustworthy. 3 years later, I was promoted again, this time to Vice President of Technology Strategy, with responsibility for our company's technical direction across all product lines. Marcus remains a valued team member, and we have developed a productive working relationship based on mutual respect and complementary strengths. The journey from being told I wasn't executive material to reaching the senior leadership team took less than 4 years. It required patience, persistence, and a willingness to let my work speak for itself rather than demanding immediate recognition. But it proved that genuine competence and consistent performance create opportunities that no amount of political maneuvering or impression management can match. When I think about that Tuesday morning conversation in Marcus's office, I'm grateful for the clarity it provided. His assessment forced me to think more strategically about my career development and to be more intentional about building relationships with senior leadership. His feedback, while incorrect in its conclusions, helped me understand how others might perceive my leadership style and what I needed to demonstrate to be taken seriously as an executive candidate. The promotion wasn't revenge against Marcus or vindication of my wounded pride. It was simply the natural result of consistently delivering value while building the skills and relationships necessary for greater responsibility. The best professional victories are those that benefit everyone involved, including those who initially doubted your potential. Today, I try to be the kind of leader I wish I had encountered earlier in my career. Someone who recognizes that technical expertise can be a leadership asset rather than a limitation. Someone who values results over appearances and competence over charisma. Someone who understands that the most effective executives are often those who maintain close contact with the technical realities of their business. The technology industry is changing rapidly, and the leaders who will be most successful are those who can adapt their approaches while maintaining their commitment to excellence. Traditional management hierarchies are giving way to more collaborative and technical leadership models. The executives who thrive in this environment will be those who combine deep expertise with strategic thinking, who can solve complex problems while inspiring others to do the same. Marcus's reaction to my promotion was priceless because it captured a moment of transition in our industry and our organization. His surprise reflected the old assumptions about leadership and executive potential. My success represented the new realities of what effective leadership looks like in technically complex organizations. The experience taught me that the most satisfying professional victories are those that create value for everyone involved, including those who initially underestimated your potential. By focusing on delivering excellent results rather than seeking recognition or revenge, I was able to build a career that has exceeded my original expectations while maintaining positive relationships with colleagues at all levels of the organization. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the opportunities to continue growing and contributing in an industry that rewards innovation, competence, and results. The lessons I learned from that Tuesday morning conversation with Marcus continue to guide my approach to leadership and professional development, reminding me that the best response to doubt is consistent, excellent performance that speaks for itself.